Welcome to 5 Technology News. This is your host, Dr. Yavuz Selim Sılay, physician, entrepreneur, and venture architect. I'm really thrilled and excited to share the 5 top technology news with you today. Apple Pay was just the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. Do you know how technology is going to take over your wallet? Then follow us in this news. Our second news is about COVID-19. As COVID-19 ravages the restaurant industry, Silicon Valley pumps $8 million into this dining and takeout startup company that I want to talk about. Our third news is about coronavirus. Amazon, the global giant, is using thermal cameras to detect COVID-19. Our fourth news is about voice cloning. Voice cloning is becoming the new normal in digital education. And my final news is about the pandemic, which has messed up totally the global supply chains. And for this, there is a solution: blockchain. Blockchains could help global supply chains. Let's get to my first news. As I mentioned, Apple Pay was just the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. How tech is taking over your wallet is now the discussion I will share with you. COVID-19 could help tech companies replace our wallets with our phones. Apple, Google, Amazon, Facebook have been eyeing our wallets for years. Now they might just get them. Contactless pay is now a stepping stone. When the coronavirus pandemic finally recedes and we can rejoin society, many of us will go through our ritualistic personal pat down before heading out to make sure we have our keys and our phone. What we may not need is our wallet. Apple, Google, Samsung, Facebook, Amazon, and many others are in the midst of a pitched effort to take over our finances. The utopian paradise they promised would finally do away with the wallets and purses filled with money and plastic. In their place would be a series of apps such as Apple Wallet, Samsung Pay, and Google Pay. To many of these companies, it's just a matter of time. We love this kind of problem, Apple CEO Tim Cook said when initially he was introducing Apple Pay in 2014. It's exactly what Apple does best. 6 years later, we're closer than ever to Apple's vision. All major credit cards work with digital wallets, from Apple, Google, and Samsung Airlines tickets too. More than 15% of all Starbucks orders come from phones now, the company said in January. Governments around the world are slowly preparing to offer driver's licenses on our phones as well. And there is more to come. Google and Amazon are working to build checking account-like products, according to reports from the Wall Street Journal last year. Google is said to be partnering with Citigroup and a local credit union to create a debit card to rival the Apple Card, while Amazon is talking to banks including JP Morgan Chase. Apple partnered with Goldman Sachs for its Apple Card launch last year. Facebook, meanwhile, wants to replace banks altogether with its Libra project, which you all know about. The digital money Facebook is bringing, which is designed using cryptocurrency technology similar to Bitcoin, is designed to offer an easier way for people to store and spend money, particularly those without a bank account and in poorer countries. For many of us, the convenience of digitizing our wallets represents more than ditching the plastic we all carry around. It offers a chance, a special chance, to do away with physical cash at a time when the COVID-19 pandemic continues to spread without a vaccine or therapeutic drug to hold it back. We don't want to spread the disease more with our cash money. Is that correct, ladies and gentlemen? And it's a way to avoid being caught at the store without the right rewards card or ID ever again. There is something in it for many of the tech companies too, analysts say. The more we use these services, the more we're likely to stick with the companies we trust to handle our money. So, Apple Pay versus Google Pay versus Samsung Pay. Mobile payments can be compared, and there can be very different options that you can look into. And here, there are companies that can use that to learn what type of food we like, when we like to buy it, whether we're more inclined to eat out or stay home on certain days of the week. So people's shopping habits can even expose information about their personalities, such as whether we lack self-control and are more civic-minded, or do we have health issues. So a lot of companies are making money off that data. And basically in the past, credit companies would sell these spending data to analysis firms and retailers to learn consumer behavior. Tech companies are realizing, though, that they can just gather that data themselves if they offer their own payment service instead. They can make their devices more intelligent. So basically, trust and tech is the other point. Our first real taste of digital wallets began with PayPal, right? So this PayPal established 2 decades ago as part of security, part financial company that promised easy money transfer across the web. Its ease of use made it a must-have among people buying and selling items on eBay. I have a PayPal account, and I'm as a seller and buyer at eBay, so I know it exactly. So fast forward to today, and the list of ways to tie up your finances with big tech companies is large and growing. So the leading device makers all have pays, whether it's Apple Pay, Google Pay, Samsung Pay, or Amazon Pay. PayPal, meanwhile, bought the popular social money app Venmo as part of an $800 million acquisition in 2013. Venmo and Square's cash money transfer app are now among the most popular ways for people to send one another money. The growth of these apps is just the latest sign that people are looking to big tech to handle their money. Industry researchers at McKinsey found in 2009 survey that while just 35% of respondents trust Facebook to handle their financial needs, more than half trust Apple and Google, and 65% trust Amazon. And the more trust tech companies can build, the more likely we are to keep coming back to them to buy more devices and services. Apple's perhaps the most dramatic example of that. It's pushed privacy as a key feature of its Apple Card. In the company's marketing press conferences and terms of services, it vows not to share customers' data with other companies or use it for anything other than detecting fraud and managing accounts. Cook frequently declares that products like Apple Pay, Apple Card, and the iPhone are the company's key products, not advertising. You are not our product, he said. Other companies appear to be following Apple's lead, integrating technologies they say make their financial products secure and relatively easy to use, which will make it all that much easier for us to ditch our wallets when digital driver's licenses start appearing in the next couple years. So, ladies and gentlemen, coronavirus could help tech companies replace our wallets with our phones. Be respectful, keep it civil, and stay on topic. And make sure that at the end, this change, if that is going to happen, can really have significant impact and can change our finances. There are also other online services that we see on the interest-free financial side, like Risk, R-I-Z-K, which is a British company which is providing interest-free finance options, and there are others that I see also raising. So including the major companies offering these products, I see more and more online payment options provided also for interest-free people and interest-free values, and that is very interesting to be able to see that on both ends you see different value opportunities that can actually build the financial world from a larger standpoint, but also from a much smaller standpoint where we can see differences all over the map, and based on the society's different known and technology, they are able to actually look into different options. My second news is about COVID-19. COVID-19 ravages the restaurant industry, and I'm going to talk about a startup. The Silicon Valley pumps $8 million into this dining and takeout startup. When major cities around the world started shuttering their restaurants and bars, Ukraine-born Stas Matyevenko began to panic. He was just finalizing a $12 million funding round for his startup Allset, a platform that allows diners to pre-order and prepay meals to save them time normally spent waiting around. Restaurants were his company's lifeblood. When they announced that dining was no longer allowed, they had to direct all of their development resources to remove their main feature, dining, explained Matvienko, who co-founded the company alongside fellow Ukrainian immigrant and Forbes under 30 listmaker Anna Polishchuk. Pickup for us was an additional feature, and then suddenly it was our entire business. The company immediately experienced a 60% drop in orders, and that wasn't the only aspect of his business that took a hit. When Allset sent investors term sheets for final signatures, multiple funders decided to back out of the deal. Suddenly, the $12 million round dropped to $8.25 million. Nevertheless, today, the company announced that it finalized the EBRD-led the Series B round, which with participation from existing investors like Andreessen Horowitz and Greycroft, amongst others. The new round brings the OSAT's total funding to $16.6 million. So this company creates drones to disinfect, other ways as well. But this news was very interesting for me to see, a company planning on funding to relaunch their mobile application that has been tabled as the company focused on figuring out how to help restaurants, which the company needs to survive, whether the storm caused by COVID-19. So they have experienced a surge in restaurants applying to work with them to build out their takeout business, with over 200 restaurants, ladies and gentlemen, joining the platform over the past few weeks. The company has over 2,500 active restaurants right now. So congratulations to OSAT, wishing them the best of luck in these trials and tribulations, as startup companies and entrepreneurs never give up. And basically, they are providing different options. For example, to aid the restaurants, all customers receive a daily $4 discount on pickup orders. Additionally, any restaurant that provides a contactless pickup option will have the company's 12% service fee waived. So once OSAT certifies and approves a restaurant's contactless pickup area, OSAT begins heavily promoting the restaurant across its platform. But what is really keeping Matvienko up at night is the thought of all the restaurants that threw in the towel too early. Around 30% of restaurants on their platform have shut down, and they expect 30% of that group will never reopen, said Matvienko. Noting that those that have stayed open in residential areas have seen major spikes in activity on the platform. What he can say for sure is that some restaurants have given up too early. Instead of closing, they should have invested in broadening their network of third-party platforms like themselves, like Postmates and Uber Eats. Based on the company's data, Matvienko speculates that everyone headed to the grocery store to stockpile food amidst the uncertainty of the first week of quarantine. But last week, OSAT saw a 10% growth in ordering that has continued to grow this week as people explore options beyond cooking at home. Eventually, OSAT plans to add back the dine-in option, but the company doesn't think that dining business will rebound quickly, even when restaurants are legally allowed to reopen. They are going to be in a different world after the quarantine, says Matvienko. Even when restaurants reopen for dining, people will be slow to begin going out in public again and be close to other people in restaurants. So this was a very interesting news that I'm really honored to share with you. And there are more startups that I will share with you down the line as we talk about very interesting news from technology. And these companies are actually changing the future. Remember, in the 2008 crisis, many companies which actually just started became the big players now. And currently, this COVID-19 crisis is actually an opportunity to start even bigger, much bigger opportunities if you can approach in a smart way. And this smart way is the only way that whoever sees the change, whoever can actually move towards the change, will be the successful and will be guiding the humanity. Let's go to our third news. Coronavirus. Amazon using thermal cameras to detect COVID-19. The giant Amazon has installed thermal cameras in its warehouses in the UK and around the world to screen workers for coronavirus symptoms. The cameras can help detect a fever by comparing a person's body heat with that of their surroundings. The technology is much faster than the close-range thermometers the company had previously relied on. Cases of COVID-19 have been reported among staff at more than 50 of Amazon's warehouses in the United States and globally. The untold, therefore, this is a very important point to make sure while you're keeping social distancing inside the warehouses, implementing these daily temperature checks in their operations and making sure to support the health and safety of the employees is the key. And now Amazon is implementing the use of thermal cameras for temperature screening to create a more streamlined experience at some of their sites. The use of the thermal camera technology will also replace thermometers at staff entrances to many of Amazon's Whole Foods stores. So ThermoScan Managing Director Dave Blaine said, thermal technology had been widely used ever since airports around the world adopted during the 2003 SARS epidemic, which is a severe acute respiratory syndrome. And they have seen a rise in the use of thermal technology across a variety of industries to the point where there is almost trouble to keep with the demand. And the World Health Organization has warned temperature screening for COVID-19 could yield false positives and is not effective for those who are asymptomatic. But Mr. Blaine said the technology nowadays can be incredibly accurate and should be used more widely. So the global demand for online deliveries has skyrocketed as many countries have closed shops to comply with the coronavirus lockdown. And while Amazon sacked a worker in New York City who organized a protest over working conditions warehouses, therefore the company's 6 warehouses in France will remain closed, and then they will make sure that the sanitary conditions are covered much more properly. My fourth news is about voice cloning. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know that voice cloning is becoming the new normal in digital education? The global e-learning market was expected to become to a staggering value of $325 billion and by 2025. And the need to educate people at low cost, the falling price of learning solutions, a modern workforce needing to continue lifelong learning, and proven convenience and effectiveness online learning. Then along came COVID-19, upending all predictions, and it's hitting the educators who never expected to be asked to go digital. In March, when the pandemic was declared, the United States sprang into action and offices, schools, and public areas were shut down. Americans found themselves unexpectedly leaving virtually to do video meetings. The need to go online collided with the education system, K to college, in a big way. Yet public school teachers were never equipped to turn to video teaching. College instructors were now being asked to dramatically pivot and bring their entire curriculums online from the current class they were teaching to future classes potentially throughout 2020. It's been a major burden on educational professionals. Online learning is a whole different proposition than face-to-face learning, and these instructors found themselves scrambling. The challenges of online teaching, taking a class online, has a whole set of new requirements, from needing to rethink the course design. For instance, if a course is discussion heavy or requires group learning, to needing to determine new strategies for teaching, engaging students, and assessing work. Teachers are now being handed a big burden, ladies and gentlemen. Turning to an asynchronous learning can shoulder some of that work, and it's one of the best benefits for students as well. Instructors make course materials and lectures accessible online, shifting some of the pressure of their own schedules in a weird new world. Students can do the work at their own pace. That means, however, that instructors need to essentially become content creators, and the learning curve is steep. Educators are not professional podcasters or YouTubers, says Tom Lee, the co-founder at Lovo. They are not used to recording or speaking into the microphone. You might ask, why maintain the audio component in digital education at all? Couldn't this be done just with PowerPoint slides and text? According to Lee, students respond more viscerally to voice and video learning. It's essential to create the connection that keeps students on track and help them hear and absorb the information being delivered. Maya Angelou once said, words mean more than what is set down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with shades of deeper meaning, Lee adds. Voice, ladies and gentlemen, is far more personal and therefore more effective. Natural language processing and online learning, scripting and recording whole lesson plans takes a tremendous amount of time and effort for an inexperienced teacher, and cuts into the time needed for other important aspects of teaching, like mentoring students. The simple fact is humans get tired easily when reading a script, and university lectures can be 2 hours in length, and the critical part, being consistent throughout the entire recording, is a major challenge. It's a real skill, and non-professionals, the instructors being asked to go digital, are struggling. That's why artificial intelligence-powered voice technology is garnering big attention in the pandemic world. Data scientists asked, what if you didn't need to record each and every lecture or class or demo that you did? What if the lessons or lectures you have already drafted in written form could be spoken in your own voice and added to online learning, without you having to take the time to sit down and record a 2-hour lecture? The solution, ladies and gentlemen, now exists. Powered by AI and companies like Lovo, users begin by simply recording a few minutes sample of their own voice. Once the voice is cloned, they can turn any written material into an audio file, which can then be downloaded and edited to videos or sliced to whip up entire lessons with significantly less effort. The fact that you can clone your own voice and generate this audio, you don't have to record yourself for every single new session, Lee says. And if you make a mistake, you don't have to redo the entire recording. You can just edit your text like you would do in Word. The new online learning normal is very interesting. So the AI-powered voice tools are being used to expedite the content creation process across the world. Such as right now with schools in California, universities in the southern part of the United States, and with instructors teaching classes for online learning platforms such as Udemy or Udacity. Digital learning will be the new normal these days. Schools and universities are recognizing the value of digital learning, the effectiveness and the cost savings involved in bringing classrooms online. Entire courses can be created with voice cloning, and demand for the tool has risen substantially, ensuring this kind of technology will become a valuable, ubiquitous service for online content creators going forward. So ladies and gentlemen, voice cloning isn't just a fad. This is much more important. And that's why I want to highlight this very important point with you at this time.
Dear fellow scholars, this is 2-Minute Papers with Károly Zsolnai Fehér. Today, we are going to listen to some amazing improvements in the area of AI-based voice cloning. For instance, if someone wanted to clone my voice, there are hours and hours of my recordings on YouTube and elsewhere. They could do it with previously existing techniques. But the question today is, if we had even more advanced methods to do this, how big of a sound sample would we really need for this? Do we need a few hours? A few minutes? The answer is no, not at all. Hold on to your papers because this new technique only requires 5 seconds. Let's listen to a couple examples.
The Norsemen considered the rainbow as a bridge over which the gods passed from Earth to their home in the sky.
Take a look at these pages for Crooked Creek Drive. There are several listings for gas station. Here's the forecast for the next 4 days.
These take the shape of a long round arch with its path high above and its two ends apparently beyond the horizon. Take a look at these pages for Crooked Creek Drive. There are several listings for gas station. Here's the forecast for the next 4 days.
Absolutely incredible. The timbre of the voice is very similar, and it is able to synthesize sounds and consonants that have to be inferred because they were not heard in the original voice sample. This requires a certain kind of intelligence and quite a bit of that. So, while we are at that, how does this new system work? Well, it requires 3 components. 1. The speaker encoder is a neural network that was trained on thousands and thousands of speakers and is meant to squeeze all this learned data into a compressed representation. In other words, it tries to learn the essence of human speech from many, many speakers. To clarify, I will add that this system listens to thousands of people talking to learn the intricacies of human speech, but this training step needs to be done only once, and after that, it was allowed just 5 seconds of speech data from someone they haven't heard of previously, and later, the synthesis takes place using this 5 seconds as an input. 2. We have a synthesizer that takes text as an input. This is what we would like our test subject to say, and it gives us a MEL spectrogram, which is a concise representation of someone's voice and the intonation. The implementation of this module is based on DeepMind's Tachotron 2 technique, and here you can see an example of this MEL spectrogram built for a male and 2 female speakers. On the left, we have the spectrograms for the reference recordings, the voice samples if you will, and on the right, we specify a piece of text that we would like the learning algorithm to utter, and it produces these corresponding synthesized spectrograms. But eventually, we would like to listen to something, and for that, we need a waveform as an output. So, the third element is thus a neural vocoder that does exactly that, and this component is implemented by DeepMind's WaveNet technique. This is the architecture that led to these amazing examples. So, how do we measure exactly how amazing it is? When we have a solution, evaluating it is also anything but trivial. In principle, we are looking for a result that is both close to the recording that we have of the target person, but says something completely different, and all this in a natural manner. This naturalness and similarity can be measured, but we are not nearly done yet because the problem gets even more difficult. For instance, it matters how we fit the 3 puzzle pieces together, and then what data we train it on, of course, also matters a great deal. Here you see that if we train on one dataset and test the results against a different one, and then swap the two, and the results in naturalness and similarity will differ significantly. The paper contains a very detailed evaluation section that explains how to deal with these difficulties. The mean opinion score is measured in this section, which is a number that describes how well a sound sample would pass as genuine human speech. And we haven't even talked about the speaker verification part, so make sure to have a look at the paper. So indeed, we can clone each other's voice by using a sample of only 5 seconds. What a time to be alive! This episode has been supported by Weights and Biases. Weights and Biases provides tools to track your experiments in your deep learning projects. It can save you a ton of time and money in these projects and is being used by OpenAI, Toyota Research, Stanford, and Berkeley. They also wrote a guide on the fundamentals of neural networks, where they explain in simple terms how to train a neural network properly, what are the most common errors you can make, and how to fix them. It is really great. You got to have a look. So make sure to visit them through wandb.com/papers, wandb.com/papers, or just click the link in the video description and you can get a free demo today. Our thanks to Weights and Biases for helping us make better videos for you.
So voice cloning isn't just a fad, and it's not going to disappear anytime soon, Lee says. Our goal is to make it more accessible for educators and content creators for online courses. This trend is not something you can choose to avoid. How you address the new normal is the critical part. So ladies and gentlemen, my last news is about global supply chains. I know many of you are actually worried about how the pandemic has messed up the global supply chains. And ladies and gentlemen, blockchains could be help.
So what are the benefits to blockchain and supply chain? And it's kind of universal, it's across the board, but it's a little more specific to supply chain that we're talking about. It's trust. Of course, it's increased because you know who is there within your blockchain. It improves your system utilization. You don't have that kind of spaghetti connections and different systems and applications getting into your invoicing, doing letters of credit, etc. And then it recalls specific parts of what you want to pull up from your blockchain. And I like to always put this slide in here because it kind of gives you a perspective of what we're talking about for numbers. And in particular, I'm going to get in and talk about the food supply chain. Think about it. 600 million, 1 in 10 get sick from eating contaminated food. 55 billion to 93 billion a year in economic loss because of poisoned food, food poisoning. Global traceability is roughly 14 billion to 2019. The food fraud costs are about 10 to 15 billion a year. And when you go to the grocery store, and I've been, I shop for my family, and I go in there and look, wait a minute, all these products are organic? How could that be? Think about it, Where's that traceability and where is it coming from? This is what we're really proud of at IBM right now that's going on and currently shaping and continues to evolve. And it started with Walmart about a year ago. They wanted to do food safety traceability with China and their pork coming from overseas. They engaged us. Walmart, of all the retailers besides an Amazon, is always on the cutting edge of technology. So what happened is recently, as of like 3 months ago, these other huge companies decided, hey, this is a mutual beneficial thing. We've got to get involved with Walmart. So Dole's involved, Nestle, Kroger, Unilever, all to really look at food safety. And that's what I mean by how blockchain can help feed the world, because there's a lot of waste, tremendous amount of waste. The food goes bad, it doesn't get to the location it needs to, people are hungry. I've read that we do have the capability to feed everybody on this planet. The issue is the waste. That's the biggest part. So when you have all these different participants, from the farmer to the processor, distributor, retailer involved, a lot of things can happen to the food. It can be compromised. It can be tainted food. It can spoil. So the story I want to share with you is spinach. In 2006, packaged spinach impacted 26 states. It was contained with E. coli. 3 people died. It took 3 weeks to figure out, okay, where's the source? What happened here? So Walmart, along with other retailers, had to go back in, find out where these packages came from. The expense, time, and money was significant. Think about that. If we could somehow get to that package, that situation faster, we could save lives. Globally, 420,000 people died from food poisoning. Think about that. 420,000 people died globally from food poisoning. Maersk is another client of ours. Maersk is a container company, shipping container company that's global. Right now, we're working with them on certain products and certain, pilots, proof of concepts. And basically with them, what I'm showing within the slide is how the ideal situation is. This is the ideal future state they want to get to. Like the other slide I showed you, the spaghetti slide, they're still doing that. But this is really the global trade distribution part that I talked about, which is critical for blockchain. It could speed up the process of goods being shipped around the globe. It could really impact what's happening across borders. And when I say, can prohibit war, think about it. Sanctions. Say we're sanctioning North Korea. Wouldn't it be great if we had blockchains established with all these different suppliers that go into North Korea or China even? Think about that. We could curtail shipments of goods going into certain countries that are bad actors. This is huge. Okay? With Maersk, we went in there and we did kind of assessment, and we found 200 manifests between shipping flowers from Kenya to Amsterdam. 200 of them. Going to different ports, getting on a plane, being shipped there. We did a pilot for them and dropped that down to just 3 and sped up the shipment close to 50%.
Distributed ledgers could give buyers a more resilient connection to other suppliers, and there can be some other options. As we all know, the novel coronavirus sweeping the globe has exposed how vulnerable the international supply chains are to disruption. The World Economic Forum has a pitch for how to make them more resilient using blockchains. COVID-19 chaos, quarantines, lockdowns, and reduced air travel has disrupted normal business operations all over the world and made it difficult for buyers to keep track of what's happening with their suppliers. Even during normal times, such a lack of visibility can hurt a supply chain's efficiency, say Rebecca Lyle, co-founder of SkuChain, which develops blockchain-based supply chain software, and Ziyang Fan, the WEF's head of digital trade, writing on the organization's website. But during a crisis, visibility is crucial because buyers must know as soon as possible if they need to find alternative suppliers. So therefore, trade is notoriously reliant on paper processes, write Lao and Fan, including detailed ship cargo lists, notices filled out by hand, and paper copies of packing lists produced by every logistics carrier in the chain. So the pandemic shows exactly why this is problematic. Show me the money. For years, blockchains have been hawked as a way to make supply chains more efficient and resilient by helping firms share sensitive information digitally. But the problems have never seemed to be bad enough to convince many firms to switch away from their tried and true paper processes. Unsurprisingly, suppliers prefer not to reveal information about their operations, pricing, and sourcing to their customers. That's one reason they have been hesitant to move away from paper. Any digital communication usually occurs between only 2 links in the supply chain at a time. So blockchain smart contracts could potentially let firms have precise control over who has permission to see their data and under what conditions. So that would solve a key technology problem in getting suppliers to participate in supply chain visibility initiatives. So buyers might even consider paying their suppliers for valuable data about their day-to-day operations in addition to the physical goods. This already occurs between some end customers and their tier 1 suppliers. A blockchain would help expand this system. So the public policies in the age of digital disruption, societies need to manage the changes the latest wave of technological advances will bring. That means promoting economic growth and providing an adequate welfare system. So the possibilities of now, with the latest technology and smartest talent, the possibilities are endless. Therefore, we need to explore the ways technology and people are bridging gaps and creating new opportunities and resiliences now through advancements in artificial intelligence, automation, organization transformation, and many more. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Yavuz Selim Sulay, physician, entrepreneur, and venture architect. I'm really thrilled that we also covered this 5 technology news. See you next time on the next 5 technology news. Take care and all the best. Bye.